দর্শক আমন্ত্রণ জানাচ্ছি চ্যানেল 24 এর নিয়মিত আয়োজন মুখোমুখিতে প্রতি পর্বে আমাদের সাথে একজন দেশি কিংবা বিদেশি অতিথি থাকেন। আমরা তার সাথে কথা বলি সুনির্দিষ্ট বিষয়ে। আজকে আমাদের সাথে আছেন অ্যাম্বাসেডর অতুল কেশব, প্রেসিডেন্ট ইউএস বাংলাদেশ বিজনেস কাউন্সিল। ওয়েলকাম টু দ্য শো।
Good to see you, Morshed. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, so tell me about your visit first, then we'll go further.
Well, this is my fourth visit to Bangladesh in my life, and I've been absolutely impressed by all the progress I've seen since my first visit, which was about 12 years ago. You know, the metro is just outside the hotel. There's that massive new airport terminal coming up, the expressway into town, which is a huge time saver. I saw the Padma Bridge as I was flying in. So Bangladesh, in the 12 years of my coming here, has been absolutely transformed. So I'm always very happy to be here, and to lead such a big delegation, top American companies, shows the interest that our companies have in the very happy news that is coming out of Bangladesh.
So who are the people you met this time?
Well, we met, of course, first and foremost, the Honorable Prime Minister, and it was wonderful of her to give us time. She has been very supportive of our efforts. I think we're all essentially rowing in the same direction in trying to achieve that dream of a Sonar Bangla, and to see Bangladesh become a middle-income country and then become a developed country. I have full faith that Bangladesh is going to be a trillion-dollar economy very soon. The amount of economic growth in this country is so impressive, and the leadership vision is so clear that our companies really respond well, and they want to show up and hear her wisdom and hear her inputs and her feedback. So we had an excellent meeting with her. We also met with the advisor, Mr. Rahman, on economic issues. We met with the ministers of Commerce and Finance, also the State Minister of Finance, Madam Aisha Khan. We met the central bank governor. We were hosted to a wonderful dinner by the foreign secretary at the Foreign Service Academy, so I felt right at home as a retired diplomat. And so the Bangladeshi government has greeted us in a very warm way, extended full hospitality, and engaged with us in a mutually constructive and respectful dialogue about what we can do together to ensure the prosperity and happiness of all of the people of Bangladesh.
So the delegation right now you have dealing with is a big one. So tell us more about who are the companies, what they're looking at when they met all these big dignitaries and they talked about policy and implementation. What's their take?
Well, our delegation was led by the U.S. Bangladesh Business Council chair. Our honorable chair is Stephen Kobos, who's the CEO of Accelerate Energy, and they're a major investor in the economy of this country. We also had prominent folks, executives from Meta, which owns WhatsApp and Facebook and Instagram and so many other things, also Visa, MasterCard. So we had digital economy, we had energy with Accelerate Energy and Chevron, we had digital economy companies like Uber, we had Amazon, we had so many others across the spectrum, companies that are looking at water and health and food and sanitation, basic happiness of the people, companies looking at how you innovate in the financial system to ensure greater prosperity. So very diverse delegation, absolutely top American companies, all interested in what the magic of what's happening in Bangladesh.
Right, and what they found, what is the magic?
Well, the magic is manifold. Number one, your country is a responsible stakeholder in the international system. It is a responsible country that helps as a net provider of security, not only in its region where it has excellent relations with its neighbors, even with great patience, I would say, with regard to what has happened with the Rohingya refugees and with Myanmar. But Bangladesh has worked to really build a cross-regional approach with India and Nepal and Bhutan and others. It is very impressive to see. Bangladesh is a net provider of global peace and security through UN peacekeeping operations. Bangladeshis help power the economies of many countries, and the remittances come home to benefit Bangladeshis. Look at something like disaster resilience. Think about 1970 and the hundreds of thousands killed in a cyclone, and look at the storm that hit Dhaka and hit the coast just 2 days ago. Now, 10 people dead is not it's a very serious matter, but it's nothing like what happened 50 years ago, and your country has put enormous effort into disaster resilience. I mentioned all of the infrastructure. Think about basic human development goals, food, water, nutrition, etc., electricity. The amount of progress this country has made in 53 years is truly impressive, and the world is starting to notice it.
And that's why all the big giant companies are coming with you to see for more opportunities?
So Bangladesh has a very steady growth trajectory, and it's been buffeted by some external shocks, like the very ill-advised war that Mr. Putin started in Europe against Ukraine, the fuel and food shocks that came as a result of that. And this was all, mind you, just after the pandemic, when the entire world was reeling from the pandemic. So your government officials have had a really tough 3 years to try to protect the happiness and safety and well-being of the Bangladeshi people. They've worked very hard on that, and I think they have yet been able to maintain growth. Bangladesh is slated to become the 9th largest consumer nation on earth. That is truly impressive, and it is also a rising nation. You have 700,000 freelance workers in the digital economy. Very few countries can claim to have that. So you have some jewels that you are developing that can help you become a real power player on the global economy.
Right. And do you think all these qualities makes Bangladesh better than any other countries in the South Asia to bring more investment, to work with big companies which you brought here?
So the key is regulation and law and policy, right? Because I think companies have to, when they look at FDI investments around the world, and American companies are sitting on trillions of dollars of available investable assets, they are looking for good opportunities. Bangladesh is pretty stable. It's got some pretty, it's been through some tough times, but the macroeconomic situation is stabilizing. The population is amazing, and it's got a wealth of human capital that is truly inspiring. You've got all of your sort of basic elements coming together. And so what the American companies are looking for is a stable and attractive policy environment where quality FDI can come in and can generate real wealth for the people of Bangladesh, real jobs, real tax revenue. And it's not debt-driven development, it's investment-driven development. So you don't get caught in debt traps like other countries in the region. You actually power your way forward like Korea or Taiwan or Japan, where you do it through your own native innovation and capability and not through debt.
As you've been to Ambassador to Sri Lanka and Maldives, you've been to Delhi, you have all this wide experience. So if you do a comparison of the economic stability and the growth in the South Asia, how do you rank Bangladesh? Would it be topper?
So I've been coming here for 12 years, twice in government service and now twice in this new incarnation as U.S. BBC president. And I have seen immense progress in those 12 years. And if you track Bangladesh over 53 years, think of the moment of acute trauma and agony of the independence year of Bangladesh, the same year I was born. Think about how much Bangladesh has achieved in 53 years, especially in the last 10, 15 years. The amount of achievement is really impressive. So I think there's been a lot of policy focus. There's been a lot of smart implementation. Obviously, nothing is perfect in life. There can be iterative improvement to make Bangladesh a more attractive investment climate, more policy coherence, more policy predictability, ease and speed of doing business, level playing field for foreign companies that want to invest. But the amount of progress by this country in the 12 years that I've worked on it professionally is remarkable.
And if you compare to the South Asia?
Now you're getting me in trouble, Morshed. I have friends all over this region, so I would just leave it at that. I think Bangladesh is very impressive. You've achieved many great things, and I think you are only just beginning to hit your marks in terms of ability to grow and really take care of your people. You have a well-led country. You have a very bright policy vision by the government. You're ambitious in what you want to achieve for your people. Bangladeshis are full of drive and ambition and a desire for a better life. And I think you have every advantage. So I wish you the greatest success.
As I see your profile, your experience, as you've been a diplomat, now in a business council, so you dealt with government, business bodies, and you know where the crisis is. So when they come, when these visits happen, a lot of interest is there, but when it's time for implement, it's business to business or government to government, when they start things getting complicated. So do you think, or what are the challenges in coming days when after this happy visit you are thinking of or may appear?
So we had an excellent set of meetings in Dhaka with government officials. And I really have to give credit to the leadership of this country, starting with the Honorable Prime Minister herself. They are willing to engage. They want to hear from us. We try to be very respectful and constructive in our suggestions. You know, these are companies that are in many countries around the world. They have seen where the policy mix is optimized, like in Singapore or in other places. They've seen where the policy mix has actually chased away foreign investors. And what they come with is essentially suggestions to say, hey, if you're going to look at this area, or you want to spark innovation here, you want to create new industries here, here are some best practices and thoughts that you may wish to consider. You're the sovereign, you make your own decisions, but these are just ideas we've seen from other places. Then, of course, as individual companies seek to make investment decisions, they will engage the government directly. And they will have their negotiations with the government. I think there was actually a very great deal of interest in the delegation in what they heard from the Bangladeshi government. And I think those kinds of negotiations will now start about future investments. But the key is the regulatory and policy and tax environment. If it's attractive, they will come.
And is it attractive, do you think?
Well, I think there's an iterative process of improvement. And this government has been very sober about trying to ensure that it maximizes the opportunity for the Bangladeshi people. You know, they have tiptoed through and navigated a very tough macroeconomic situation. The central bank governor has a very stressful job trying to take care of the well-being of all of the people. But there is a lot of awareness in the government that if they bake the cake right on things like the digital economy, or on fintech and financial services, or on agribusiness, or on manufacturing, the world may beat a path through their door. So this is a moment of golden opportunity for the people of Bangladesh.
Bangladesh is one of those countries where you see the youngest working force, that's number one. And also you mentioned about they are digitally innovative, number two. And number three, the growing middle class. Is it the reason why the US giant tech companies are very much interested?
Absolutely. This is a country of 175 million people. It is politically stable. It is macroeconomically getting through the tough times. It has enormous human capital in ways that would be the envy of any other country except one or two. And it's a very bright population. The fact that you have 700,000 people in the innovation economy, the digital economy, is really, it's almost a startup that has just happened. So if you can really invest in your people, I think the future is very bright. And for these companies, that is what brings them to Bangladesh.
Right. So without Uber, we don't have any other big giant companies from the US. But recently we have seen the Cinnabon launched franchise here in Dhaka. So that means there are a lot of other US investors are coming up. So I see the Amazon people are here with you and other giant. Would they be interested to start their operation?
Well, there were some very interesting proposals suggested to the government in different areas where Bangladesh has a natural advantage. And I don't want to make news. It's for your government to announce what those might be. And it's for the companies to work with government to see if an investment opportunity can be realized. But the areas are very interesting, and they leverage your strength as a garment exporter. They leverage your human capital. They leverage your geographic position at the heart of the Indo-Pacific. They leverage, I think, your great know-how in things like agriculture. So there are some ideas on the table, but then also, for instance, just helping improve the efficiency of your financial systems so that your people can have a better life and a better future and an easier future is also something that I think could be studied. So there's quite a bit of positive energy that came out of the delegation because your government has been very welcoming and very encouraging, and so the companies then respond in kind.
Right, and which are the companies they made some offer?
Well, I'll let them and the government make the news. But what I will say is that your government stands out in terms of how it wants to attract investment. And this is a global competition when you think about it. You know, in my country, the governor of Ohio or Virginia or California, Texas will roll out the red carpet for a foreign investor, right? And will say, all right, look, everything I can do within my power to help bring you in, you tell me. Same is true in China. Same is true in India. Same is true in Vietnam and Indonesia. People know it's a global competition for foreign direct investment because that is the real generator of national wealth and national well-being and national sovereignty. It's not debt-driven, it's investment-driven. Right. And so I think your government's playing a pretty strong game in engaging with the private sector.
Right. So there are like 100 economic zones which government are offering for all the investment. Did you talk about these zones and any possible investment?
Yes, the government mentioned them, and of course our companies are interested, and we've received a lot of information about them. This is now my job as a business council president is to bring the companies to meet the government, and so we provide almost an umbrella to bring them in, working with my colleagues in the U.S. BBC. But then any deal making is between the companies and the government, or companies and companies, right? Local Bangladeshi companies working with American companies. But my job and the job of my team is to bring them to the table. And your government's job is to reciprocate by giving us the opportunity to meet, to convey our views, to hear your government's views, and then see what's possible. And in that regard, I would say what is happening with US BBC, working with your government, is a model for how this sort of thing ought to be done all around the world.
Right. So for Bangladesh, there is a complaint by certain diplomats or certain business sections that Bangladesh government is flexible to certain particular country which is not from the Western Bloc, and they have all the facilities when they do the tendering, e-tendering. Do U.S. companies have any such concerns? Because when you go for such business and tendering, it should be win-win situation, right?
Morshed, here's how I view it.
Okay.
Every American company operates under the very strictest standards imposed by the United States government related to transparency, absolute transparency. They operate to the highest code of ethics because the U.S. government requires that of them. And they also have the highest levels of technology, of managerial talent, environmental protection and awareness, corporate social responsibility. So this is a choice. Like every country around the world can make choices about how it runs its affairs. That's a sovereign right. But if you want the highest level of FDI in the world with the greatest capability and the greatest ability to transform a society through innovation and through strengthening the institutions of society, especially in the private sector, go American. You will do very well. And this has been true all around the world in countries that have allowed American investment, have welcomed it in. It has been transformative in lifting the entire country in terms of its prosperity and its ability to compete on the global scale.
Right. What if people say that U.S. When Mr. Donald Lu had a visit, there was a saying that the U.S. companies want to take back their profit, and there are some, dollar issues or reserve issues. Did you talk about these things with these stakeholders when they meet? Because they will be hearing from their friends who are already invested here.
Right. So this is the thing about investment, right? Capital looks for investment because an investment should have a rate of return, right? A company isn't going to invest if it can't have a rate of return. Companies have invested in Bangladesh. There's a 30 or 40-year track record of heavy American investment in this country that keeps the lights on every day and helps power the entire Bangladeshi economy. And there's more of that kind of investment coming in the energy space. But a rate of return is essential. A bank doesn't lend you money unless it can get a little bit of money on top of what it lends you in order to make the investment possible. So there have been conversations, but I think there's a very broad awareness that Bangladesh has been through a tough time. And it's a tough time that was imposed on it by Mr. Putin's war and by all of the shocks in the system coming out of the pandemic. And so as the country gets back on its feet macroeconomically, there's tailwinds now that are pushing the economy in a good direction. I think the companies understand when a friend has a little bit of difficulty, and they particularly appreciate when a country works diligently through those difficulties in order to maintain its commitments.
All these businessmen who are moving with you, are they aware of the fact there will be new policy like Personal Data Protection Act, which is government of thinking to implement? Do they have any concern on this particular issue?
So I think this is how we view it. First of all, this is a sovereign right. Every government has to make these decisions in the best interests of their people. That is true in America. It's true in countries all around the world. Speaking for how I think my country has done it, we are leaders in the digital economy, and our companies are the biggest in the world, and they have generated unbelievable wealth and prosperity and jobs and tax revenue for the American people. And so I think when my government looks at digital economy and it looks at data, it looks at privacy, it looks at innovation like artificial intelligence, it first and foremost wants to preserve the innovation ecosystem of the United States and to make sure that it remains a leader in world affairs. I spent a lot of time in California. I was in Palo Alto 2 weeks ago. The amount of innovation that happens in a 15-mile radius around Palo Alto is incredible. And we have created, we meaning industry and government working together, have created an ecosystem that is unbelievable when you think about the research universities, the talent they attract from around the world, students that come from every place on earth. They then get academic freedom to research. That research then becomes potential platforms for technology and innovation that can even lead to products and can lead to companies. And it's almost an incubator for prosperity and innovation. And it's one of the reasons why the San Francisco Bay Area has essentially led the entire world in innovation for about 40 years. You can't escape the changes that have happened based on what is happening in San Francisco. So I talk about that because a country like Bangladesh has a wealth that very few other countries have, which is very skilled, very capable human talent that can plug right into the digital economy. And as you look at all these new frontiers, you know, your Prime Minister talks about a cashless Bangladesh. That takes data, it takes innovation, it takes technology, it takes application, it takes cooperation with government. If you look at how Bangladeshis might be able to move from 700,000 freelance workers to being actual innovators in the global digital economy, I think it's useful to think about optimizing the framework, the policy framework for your digital economy and for your innovation ecosystem so that you can step into the front ranks of countries that do this, right? One of the reasons Singapore became Singapore is that they study the regulation and the law and the policy of every other country around them, and then they say, okay, let's be better than all of them. Then they study it again because they're very diligent, and they say, all right, we're now better than everyone around us. Now what would it take to be the best in the world? And then they go to that level, and they constantly iterate and improve their policy. So I think there's an opportunity for your government to think about how other countries have created that new industry, sunrise industry of prosperity, high value, high skill, high income, and replicate it here.
Okay. So as you talked about Singapore where there is a not criticism, but Singapore is highly dependent on both US and China, and Bangladesh is the same. And interestingly, we have Russians who are making the nuclear power plant, we have Japanese building the major infrastructure, and Chinese are there. So Bangladesh is a place where all the giant world leaders are here, and obviously there is a competition. In that particular view, how do you see Bangladesh as an ex-diplomat also? How do you see Bangladesh playing? Is it well?
So I will bat for my team, right? I think that we as Americans are good partners. Our companies are good partners. They help build the prosperity of nations. They help lift nations to new levels of competitive capability. And you can look to all of our allies and friends and partners around the world that have prospered very well. The other thing about American foreign policy, and I am a retired ex-diplomat, is that we believe in free and independent and sovereign nations, right? We always talk in this region about a free and open Indo-Pacific. And that means that countries should retain their sovereign rights to be free and independent or immune from foreign influence. And so I think, you know, just like maybe in your family or in my family, we go for French cuisine one day, Chinese the next day, Indian the third day, maybe a hamburger the next day. You can have a little bit of, you know, it's not a bad thing to have a little bit of choice. But when you look at your partners, think about the ones that want you to be strong and want you to be happy and want you to be prosperous and want you to be free. And those are the best kinds of friends.
Wow. What a good way to end this show. Thank you so much. It's been absolutely pleasure.
Morshad, it's a delight. Thank you very much. Good to see you.
আমরা কথা বলছিলাম অ্যাম্বাসেডর অতুল কেশাপের সাথে। তার বক্তব্য একটাই, যারা বাংলাদেশের বন্ধু হতে চায়, বাংলাদেশকে শক্তিশালী দেখতে চায়, বাংলাদেশ উচিত হবে তার সাথে কাজ করা। দেখা হবে মুখোমুখির অন্য কোনো পর্বে। তার পর্যন্ত ভালো থাকুন, সুস্থ থাকুন।